Alright, what's up everyone? This is NinjaDeathStrike bringing you part 3 of my Pokemon TCGO mini tutorial. So tonight I want to talk about packs, really briefly, which packs you should buy if you're just starting out, and then go over the primes, which are kind of the big cards in the format right now. So as you can see, I'm not in the main menu for the collection, I'm in the store. All this stuff here on the side is the things you can buy, but right now you can really only get theme decks and booster packs. Theme decks you get from buying the real life decks, and they're a decent way to start. They probably have some good trainers, but what you really want to do if you want a good deck is get booster packs. So right now there are 7 legal boosters that can be used in modified format. That'll change in a couple weeks when the new one, Noble Victories, comes out, but for now there's 7. So we've got Emerging Powers, excuse me, which is the newest one, Black and White, Call of Legends, Heart Gold and Soul Silver Original, Heart Gold, Soul Silver Triumphant, Undaunted, and Unleashed. So one of the big decisions you have to think about is which packs you want to buy with your credits, especially if you don't have that many to spend. You don't want to waste them on packs that don't have a whole lot of good or helpful cards in them. So let's start at the top with the best packs to buy. And there are 3 packs that stand above the others. Those are Triumphant, Unleashed, and the base set Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Now, usually Triumphant and Unleashed are valued more than Heart Gold, Soul Silver, just by a little bit. But I would recommend for your first set of packs to get Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and the reason for that is there are a lot of good uncommon cards in this pack that you can get relatively easily. The main 2 are the Double Colorless Energy and Pokemon Collector, and you need, if you watch the trainers tutorial, you'll remember that I said you need 3 or 4 collectors in pretty much every deck. And so rather than being forced to pay 2 packs per card for those like you would on the market, you have a decent chance of getting one in one of these packs. So if you just buy a bunch of Heart Gold, Soul Silver, you'll probably get some. On top of that, there's some really good primes in here, mainly Typhlosion Prime, which is used in one of the current most popular and at best, in my opinion, best beginner decks that you can build for your first competitive deck. So Heart Gold, Soul Silver is really good for your first batch of packs. And then the other 2, Triumphant and Unleashed, are both equally great. They do have some differences, however, and it's mainly in how much of a risk you want to take. Heart Gold, Soul Silver Triumphant has a lot of the biggest cards in the format. You can get Yanmega Prime, Mew Prime, and Magnezone Prime out of these packs. But the downside is that it doesn't have a whole lot of playable uncommon cards. There's Twins, Junk Arm, I think, is in this pack. Maybe some other variable trainers, but really, when you buy this pack, you're taking a chance that you're going to pull one of the big primes. Whereas with Unleashed, there are a ton of really good playable cards in these packs. The only thing is they're kind of like in the mid-range value-wise. They're not the best. Let's see, you've got Kingdra, Tyranitar, what else is in here? Rare Candy. There's a bunch of other stuff. Shaman is in Unleashed. That's a big card right now. So your safer bet is to go with Unleashed, but if you want to try to get some of that big stuff, you're going to want to go with Triumphant. Also, if you're trading packs for cards, these 3 are the usual most requested packs. So it's a good idea to have some of these on hand unopened if you're looking to trade. So these are easily the top 3. You've got a lot of the really good cards contained within just these 3 packs. Moving down the ladder slightly, we have Black and White. This is still, I think, a very solid pack. It's got Reuniclus as well as Zekrom and Reshiram. So pretty good. It's got some. It has all of the starters too with the abilities: the Samurott, Embor, and Superior. with the ability, not the ones you get from the starter decks, are all really great. Especially Embor is huge, and even the other Embor also sees play in some decks. So this is another good pack to get, but just not quite as good as the other three. Next up, we have Emerging Powers, the newest pack. This one's decent. I am not a big fan of it. That's just my preference. However, there is one really important card in the Emerging Powers set, and that's Pokemon Catcher. So you could buy some of these if you want to try to pull Catcher. It's only an uncommon, so chances are pretty good that you'll be able to get one. But I'd advise just probably buying them. You can also get Tornadus in these packs. Tornadus is really big in Zekrom decks right now, and just a really, really great card in general. But other than that, there's a couple of other cool things in there. Beartic, Gothitelle is in here, so not a bad pack, just not one that I usually buy. And along with Emerging Powers, we kind of have Undaunted in about the same boat, maybe a little bit below. And there aren't a whole lot of good cards in here, especially the Primes. The Primes usually don't see a whole lot of play. Things like Slowking, Umbreon, Espeon, Scissor. Just the Primes really aren't good, and that's why this pack isn't that valuable. However, there is some good stuff in here. Vileplume comes from this pack, as well as Roserade and Leafeon, so you can build a pretty decent grass deck almost on this pack alone. You can also get some nice things for Mewbox decks like Muck comes in Undaunted packs. So they're not bad packs to buy, but they are kind of lower than the others. And then finally, down way at the bottom of the ladder, we have Call of Legends, which is hands down the absolute worst pack you can buy. The reason being is that all of the rare cards pretty much suck. There's one big card in here, and that is Pachirisu. That is really the only reason to buy Call of Legends, for the chance to pull Pachi, and that's the reason Pachirisu, is actually so expensive right now, because no one wants to buy these packs. So there's some other okay cards, but it's mainly full of a bunch of really, really crappy basic legends. Not even like the two-part legends that I showed you last time. Just single legends, terrible attacks. Like Dialga is possibly the worst card ever made. This is for collectors, and since there's not a whole lot of point to collecting online cards, you can skip this one. So that's going to do it for the packs. We'll see how Noble Victories ends up falling into the value. It looks like it's going to be pretty interesting. It's kind of hard to tell until things settle down. So if you're going to get some of those, I advise buying them early and then trading that stuff while the value is still high. So now let's look at primes, which are kind of the big kids on the block right now. Alright, so here we are back in my collection. Let's go to new trade, public offer, and we can sort by prime right away. So here we go. These are the big players in the game currently, at least until the new EXs come out, which are going to just obliterate these guys, but let's talk about them. So first up, we have Meganium Prime. Now, it doesn't say Prime, but you can tell just by the artwork, the picture, the rim kind of thing, and it's shiny, so you know that it's a Prime. Meganium Prime is from Heart Gold, Soul Silver. It's got 150 HP, which is nice, and the ability Leaf Trans, which lets you move your grass energy around on your side of the field however you want. And that's not a bad Pokepower by any means. Its attack, Solar Beam, does 80 damage for 4 energy. That's not a very good attack. And a 2 retreat cost. So Meganium is a very, very mediocre Prime. It's a stage 2, so if it's going to take that long to set up, you really want it to be able to do something spectacular. And all it can do is move energy around, which Shaman can do, and it's a basic. So granted, you can move it around whenever you want, but still it's not going to be that great, and it's not going to see any play in the top decks. So if you get one, try to trade it for something more useful. Meganium's not going to do a whole lot for you. Next we have Yanmega, 110 HP. This is from the Triumphant, Heart Gold, Soul Silver Triumphant packs, and it's Pokebody Insight. Let's read it. If you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, the attack cost of each of Yanmega's attacks is 0, and that is an amazing ability. You don't need energy to use this thing. And if that wasn't good enough, we get another great attack here. Linear attack lets you snipe for 40 damage, so you can hit anything on their side of the field, including their bench, for 40 damage for free. So any basic that has 40 HP or less can be KO'd at your leisure, and it's not safe on the bench. This is really great for picking off baby Pokemon because they only have 30 HP, and so if they're on your opponent's bench, they're basically free prizes for you. The other attack is Sonic Boom, does 70 damage, and it's not affected by weakness or resistance. Not a bad attack by any means. The damage output isn't great, but when you figure that you don't have to pay this rather steep attack cost, it's great. 70 damage is enough to knock out a lot of basics and even a fair few stage 1s. So Yanmega is hands down one of the best cards in the format right now. If you manage to pull this, consider yourself extremely lucky, and it factors into a lot of really great decks. So definitely a card worth having and worth using. Next up is Typhlosion, 140 HP. That's a little bit low for a Stage 2 Prime, but not terrible. His Pokepower Afterburner. Once during your turn, you may search your discard pile and put a fire energy onto one of your Pokemon, and then it does 10 damage to that Pokemon. This is amazing. Simply amazing. For my money, I would say this might be the best Pokepower that there is right now. I can't think of any others that would really give it a whole lot of competition, maybe Magnezone. But this is just amazing because it means that you don't have to worry about energy. Once you've got 3 energy on the field and you've got 1 or 2 Typhlosion Prime, you're basically set on energy for the rest of the game because you can just attach it every turn from your discard pile. So if one of your guys gets knocked out, the energy that was on them is not lost to you. You're able to recycle your energy. And that also means that Catcher is not nearly as threatening to you since you can reattach the energy from your discard pile to get that retreat cost. So, I mean, it's still inconvenient, but Typhlosion decks handle Catcher a lot better than any of the other decks because it's much harder to trap them. Typhlosion's attack, Flare Destroy, does 70 damage, discard an energy attached to Typhlosion, and then discard an energy from the defending Pokemon. This is a great attack. Damage output, not fantastic, but discarding energy is nothing for you, and it's incredibly crippling to your opponent. So Typhlosion, fantastic card. It pairs very well, as I mentioned, with Reshiram. You'll see a lot of Reshiram Typhlosion decks, and it also can be used to help power up Rayquaza Deoxys Legend. So Typhlosion is fantastic. It's from the Heart Gold, Soul Silver packs. And for new players, I would really recommend strongly considering a Typhlosion deck. It's very easy to use, very consistent, and generally just a fantastic deck type. So next up, we have Feraligatr Prime. Again, 140, so decent but not amazing hit points. Rain Dance. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a water energy to one of your water Pokemon. So you can only put it on water Pokemon. The ability can't be used if Feraligatr is affected by a special condition. This is a pretty great power as well. The main problem right now is that there aren't a whole lot of water Pokemon that can take advantage of it. The biggest is Blastoise, which needs you to return 2 waters to your hand. So you can return them to your hand and then put them back on with Feraligatr the next turn. And that lets Blastoise snipe for 100. So the other attack, Hydro Cannon, 60 damage plus 10 more damage for each damage counter on the defending Pokemon. Not a great attack. Only 60 base and 4 water energy. Just too expensive for what it's doing, but Feraligator's not meant to attack, he's meant to support. And he can do that really well. It's just that right now there aren't a whole lot of cards to take advantage of that. So you can use him to great effect in a Blastoise deck, but it's a little bit slow, and Blastoise damage is a little bit disappointing. Still, Feraligator is not a terrible card, and he's definitely playable. Next up, we have Kingdra. 130 hit points, low, very low for a Stage 2 Prime, but at least it's over 120. Let's look at his Poke Power. Spray Splash. Once during your turn, you may put 1 damage counter on one of your opponent's Pokemon. This probably doesn't sound that great, but in play, it's absolutely fantastic. This is basically like having a plus power every turn, and you're able to stack it. So if you get multiple Kingdras on your bench, you can put up to 30 extra damage onto the field for free every turn, and that turns a lot of 2-hit KOs into 1-hit KOs. One of the biggest things that this is going to affect is the 2 dragons. Zekrom and Reshiram both have 130 hit points, and they both do 120 damage. So if you use Kingdra to put that 1 extra damage on and then attack, you get a 1-hit KO, and you're able to take them out without needing to take a counterattack. So really great power. Kingdra is a tech card in a lot of decks, just because it's more reliable than plus power. If you can get it up, you don't have to worry about trainer lock, you don't have to worry about drawing into it. It's on your bench, it's there every turn whenever you need it. Dragon Stream for 1 water energy does 60 damage, and if your opponent has any fire Pokemon in play, this attack's base damage is 20 instead of 60. So not a great attack, but you're not going to be attacking with Kingdra very often, and it does have its uses. 60 damage for 1 energy is nice, and he can hit Donphan Prime for weakness. So another great card. He's from the Unleashed boosters, so if you want to get a Kingdra, you're going to want to buy Unleashed packs. Next, Ampharos Prime, 140 hit points, Pokebody, Conductivity. Whenever you attach an energy, whenever your opponent attaches an energy, they have to add 1 damage to that Pokemon if it's from their hand. So that's kind of cool, and also this stacks as well. So if you get, 2 or 3 Ampharos up, that's 20 or 30 damage every time they attach an energy, which they have to do. So that can add up quite a bit. The attack, Lightning Crush, fairly cheap. It's 3 energy, but it only needs 1 specific. And flip a coin. If this attack, if heads, this attack does 40 plus 40, and if tails, you get to discard an energy. So Ampharos, not a bad card, just not that great. He doesn't do a whole lot to help. I could actually see this working as a pseudo Kingdra, since your opponent is going to have to attach energies, and it's going to put that extra 10 damage on to get you closer to the KO. The only thing is that it doesn't let you snipe, it doesn't let you slowly work things down, and that's why Kingdra is generally chosen over Ampharos. But if you happen to pull an Ampharos and you don't have any Kingdras, you could try it out in the place of Ampharos, and it might work out fairly well. One thing to keep in mind is that it's weak to fighting, so Donphan will rape it, but other than that, not a bad card in general, just kind of overshadowed by Kingdra. Next we have Electrode, 90 HP, pretty terrible for a Prime. Poke Power, Energy Might, this one is fun. Basically, I won't read this whole block of text. Basically what happens is you can knock out Electrode, and then you draw 7 cards from your deck, put all the energies onto your Pokemon however you want, and then discard the rest. So Electrode is kind of the king of energy acceleration. You have to give up a prize, but you can get something that takes a lot of energies to attack and doesn't have any, ready to go in 1 turn. On top of that, this card pairs really well with the Twins, since you get to dictate when it's knocked out. So if you want to be able to use your Twins but you're currently tied in prizes, you can knock out Electrode, attach a bunch of energies, and then still play your twins as well and get any 2 cards you want. So for the longest time, Electrode was basically thought of as worthless, but I think some people are kind of starting to catch on to his usefulness, especially in Gothitelle decks, since Goth takes so long to get powered up. He is useful. He's not like the best prime. His attack is worthless. I'm not even going to read it because you'll never ever use it. And but the Poke Power does give you some fun, interesting options. So he's worth having if you manage to get a hold of him. He's from the Triumphant packs, so you might accidentally pull him if you're looking for a Yen Mega or Magnezone, and you can have some fun with him. Next up, we have Raichu, 100 hit points, not great. Volt Increase. I've actually never read this card before, so I don't know what it does either. As often as you like during your turn, you may move a lightning energy attached to one of your Pokemon to Raichu. This power can't be used if Raichu has a special condition. Okay, so he's kind of like Blastoise, only with lightning energies. Mega Thunderbolt, discard all energy attached to Raichu. That means you have to discard 3 energies for 120 damage. That's a nice amount of damage, discarding 3 energies, and it's not even 3, it's all. So you can't, stack up to get a couple attacks off. You have to get rid of all of them. Raichu never gets played because Zekrom is just better in every aspect. Doesn't discard energy, has more hit points. Just better. Don't use this. Use Zekrom. End of story. Next we have Crobat, 130. That's decent-ish. Not great for a stage 2, but his attacks are really great. You can see he's very cheap, only 1 energy for both attacks. That's fantastic. Severe Poison poisons the opponent, and in between turns you put 4 damage on them instead of 1. So that's kind of terrible to get hit with because it's basically 80 damage if you don't switch out immediately, and it's 40 no matter what. So this attack is really good for big, heavy Pokemon that have a bunch of hit points, especially Donphan. Crobat loves fighting Donphan because he destroys him. So his other one, Skill Dive, lets you snipe for 30 damage. That's a great attack too. 30 is just enough to KO babies, so you can pick off babies on the bench. And Crobat gets used a lot with Mew. Since it's a stage 2, he's kind of slow, but if you have him in a Mew deck, you can just see off the first turn, and then Mew can use both of these attacks. So he's definitely a good card. You can use him on his own, or you can use him in a Mew deck. He's very, very versatile and very handy to have. He also has a free retreat cost, so that's really nice. And he's from Unleashed. So if you want Crobat, grab some Unleashed packs. Next up, we have Gengar, which is an extremely interesting card. 130 HP again, and his Pokebody, Catastrophe. As long as Gengar is your active Pokemon, if any of your opponent's Pokemon are knocked out, those Pokemon go into the Lost Zone instead of discarding. And here we see what Gengar's deal is. Gengar operates on the Lost Zone, much like Mew, only kind of in the opposite direction. Gengar is putting your opponent's cards in the Lost Zone, whereas Mew is putting your cards in the Lost Zone. His first attack, Hurl into Darkness. Look at your opponent's hand, choose a number of Pokemon you find there up to the number of Psychic Energy attached to Gengar. Put those Pokemon into the Lost Zone. So this is a really disruptive attack, especially if you get to do it before your opponent has a chance to evolve, because you can just chuck all of their evolutions into the Lost Zone and they're gone forever. There's no way to get those cards out of there for the rest of the game. And his other one, Curse Drop, lets you put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon however you want. Another really great attack. Only does 40 damage, but you get to do that damage however you want to. So you can spread it out, put it all on one. You never have to waste damage. So the thing with Gengar is that he is only played in Lost World decks. If you remember the trainer video I did, Lost World is the card that lets you win the game if you put 6 of your opponent's Pokemon into the Lost Zone, and Gengar has the ability to do that very, very fast. So he will get played in those decks. They are not very popular right now just because they struggle against some of the other decks in the format, and they really need to go first in order to have a chance. So he's kind of an in-the-middle card, but I really like him. I think Lost World is a really cool kind of deck. It's completely different from anything else in the format right now. And Gengar comes from the Triumphant Pack. So again, you might come across one if you're looking for some of the other big guys. And next up we have Mew, my favorite Prime. Mew Prime, only 60 hit points. I believe that is the lowest for any of the Prime cards. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know how Mew works. His Pokebody lets him use any attacks of any Pokemon in the Lost Zone, both yours and your opponent's, but you still need the energy to use those attacks. So you're going to need low energy attackers in there. And his only attack, See Off, lets you search your deck for a Pokemon and put it into the Lost Zone. So the basic idea is you put things into the Lost Zone and then you use their attacks. And normally you're going to put like stage 2 guys in there that are a little hard to get onto the field otherwise and be able to use their attacks much more easily. And he has no retreat cost, which is fantastic. Means you can always get him out of there if you need to. He pairs very well with Yanmega since they both have free retreat, and their attacks work pretty well in tandem. And Mew's from, again, Triumphant. So he is a great reason to buy Triumphant packs. Mew decks are really fun. Unfortunately, they're not great in the current format just because of the most popular decks being played right now match up pretty well against it. And it's a very expensive deck to build, so I would not recommend a Mew deck for a starter. But if you're willing to devote the resources you need to build a Mew deck, they're a blast. I love playing this deck, so really fun card. Next up, we have one of the big guys right now, Donphan Prime. 120 hit points. This is a stage 1, so that's great HP for a stage 1. And it gets even better. His Pokebody Exoskeleton reduces any damage done to Donphan by 20 after applying weakness and resistance. So really, this is like 140 at least, and that's only if you're attacking him once. So great Pokebody. His first attack, Earthquake, 1 energy, 60 damage. So fantastic. That's able to knock out a ton of things in one hit. You can hit for 120 on weakness. It does do 10 damage to each of your bench, which is kind of unfortunate, but there are certain decks you can use that to your advantage, especially with the dragons, since they can use Outrage and actually use that damage against your opponent. The other attack, Heavy Impact, 90 damage for 3 fighting energy is not great, but definitely workable. The only downside here is this retreat cost, 4. If Donphan gets trapped in the active zone without any energy, or if he gets poisoned by Crobat Prime, he's not going to last very long, and you can't get him out of there unless you have a switch. So most decks that play Donphan are going to play switches just to get this guy out of the active spot when they need to. Oh, and he's from Heart Gold, Soul Silver. So in addition to Typhlosion, you've also got the chance to pull Donphan from those packs. Another reason to buy them. Next up, we have Machamp Prime. 150 hit points. That's amazing. Not a whole lot of things are going to be able to knock him out in one hit. Just a few cards that can hit that high. And he's got a great Poke Power as well. Fighting Tag. Once during your turn, if Machamp is on your bench, you may move all fighting energy attached to your active Pokemon to Machamp. If you do, switch Machamp with your active Pokemon. So this is like a free switch with free energy too. There's nothing not to like about this Poke Power. And then on top of that, we have Crushing Punch, discard a special energy card attached to the defending Pokemon. Decent, you know, just kind of a meh attack. The energy is nice. And the main draw here is Champ Buster, does 100 damage plus 10 more for each of your bench Pokemon with any damage on it. And paired with Donphan, this is a scary proposition for your opponent, since Donphan can put all of that damage onto your bench, then you fighting tag into Machamp, hit for 150 damage, and just wreck. So Machamp is actually a really good card. He doesn't see a whole lot of play, I guess because he's a little slow, but he's by no means terrible. And a Donphan Machamp deck is a solid deck that can be run pretty quickly. It's a little expensive since Donphan is pretty pricey, but Machamp is not expensive at all. And he's also from Triumphant, so get some of those if you want Machamp. Looks like we're running a little bit long on time, but I'm gonna, I guess I'll probably keep going just because I want to get all these primes done tonight, so bear with me. If I go too long, take a break, pause me, and come back, do something else for a while, or just listen to me while you do something else. Anyhow, our next Pokemon is Absol Prime, 80 hit points. That's okay for basic, I guess. I have Disaster. When your opponent puts a basic onto the bench, you get to do 20 damage to it for free. Again, another alternative to Kingdra. The downside of this one is that Absol has to be active, so he's far, far inferior to Kingdra in that respect. And Vicious Claw, you have to put a Pokemon into the Lost Zone to use the attack. This could work alongside Mew, I guess. Gets those things into the Lost Zone from your hand. But generally, you're not going to see Absol used a whole lot. It's not that he's bad, he's just kind of meh. So let's skip him. Next up is Blissey. 130, again on a stage 1. That's fantastic. Blissful Nurse. If you've watched any of my Reuniclus videos, you've seen this one in action. When you play this Blissey from your hand to evolve Chansey, you can choose to heal all of the damage off of all of your Pokemon with the cost of discarding all the energy attached to those Pokemon. So as long as you make sure that all of your damage is on Pokemon without energy, you get to do this for free, which can be absolutely game-changing. Its attack strength, 60 damage for 3 energy, just vanilla attack that you will hopefully never need to use. Blissey's all about the ability, all about the ability and all about Reuniclus support. So that's the only time you're going to see use, but it's good in those decks. And Blissey's from Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I didn't mention Absol is from Triumphant. Next up, Ursa Ring, 110. That's pretty good for stage 1. And Pokebody Berserk, as long as Ursa Ring has any damage counters on it, all of its attacks do 60 more damage. So that's pretty cool. You can use Reuniclus, you could attach a Rainbow Energy to it, or you could use Donphan to get that 1 damage on there and activate Berserk. So Hammer Arm is actually going to be 90 if you're playing Ursa Ring right, and you get to discard a card off your opponent's deck. That's kind of cool. And Megaton Lariat for double colorless, a little expensive, but 120 if you get the Berserk activated. So really high retreat cost. Ursa Ring does not see a whole lot of play just because it's generally outclassed by other things that can do more damage for less energy, but it is certainly a playable card, and it's from Unleashed. Next, poor Celebi. 60 hit points, Forest Breath. Once during your turn, if Celebi is your active Pokemon, you can attach a Grass Energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. That's pretty cool. It would be a lot better if it could be on the bench, but since it has to be active, kind of hard to pull off. Time Circle takes 3 energy, 2 different kinds, and it only does 30 damage. During your opponent's next turn, you get to prevent all effects of attack from stage 1 or stage 2. So that sounds kind of cool, but way too expensive, and Zekrom and Reshiram say hi. They would love to see Celebi because they just destroy it, especially Reshiram with a fire weakness. It doesn't even have a free retreat cost. It costs an energy to retreat. So this is probably the worst prime that there is. Don't play this one. It's from Triumphant. So if you get a prime out of Triumphant, just pray that it isn't Celebi. Next up we have Espeon, 100 hit points. That's kind of meh. Evolution Memories lets you use the attacks of all Pokemon you have in play that evolved from Eevee. So that's kind of cool, but you still need the energies to use those attacks. And then its attack Solar Ray, 30 damage for 2 energy, and remove 1 damage counter from each of your Pokemon. Espeon just doesn't do a whole lot. I've never seen it used. It's just not that great. I mean, if it's all you've got, sure, it's not bad. It's kind of cool, but just outclassed by everything else we've talked about, with the exception of Celebi. So it's from the Undaunted set. This is the symbol for Undaunted. Next, Umbreon Prime, same 100 HP. Cloud-Covered Moon is kind of interesting. Once during your turn, if Umbreon is your active Pokemon, you can flip a coin. If heads, return Umbreon and all cards attached to it to your hand. So I could see that being useful. Denies your opponent a prize, lets you get him out of the active spot, and doesn't even make it shuffle into your deck. It goes into your hand, so you can power him up again. So that's pretty cool. Evo Blast, 50 damage plus 10 more for each Pokemon in play that evolves from Eevee. This can be boosted with special dark energy, so I would say that Umbreon is definitely better than Espeon, but still a pretty meh prime. And you won't see him used a whole lot either. I've never seen one in play. He's also from Undaunted. Next, Houndoom Prime, 110 HP. So that's nice. He's got that extra 10. Kind of puts him above a threshold of those 100 damage attacks. Fire Breath, once during your turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon is now burned. That's kind of handy. He doesn't have to be active for you to use that, so that's very nice. His attack, 70 damage for a lot of energy and very specific energy, and it only keeps the opponent from retreating. So if you're playing Houndoom, he's going to be on your bench, not going to be attacking. And he's also kind of meh. You can see a running theme here with all the Undaunted primes that none of them are really that great. So again, from Undaunted, a usable card, but not a great one. Next up, we have Lantern Prime. Again, that 110 hit points. His Pokepower Submerged lets you change his typing to water once per turn if you want, so that's nice. Means he's got double the super effective hits, and water and lightning are really nice types. Lantern works as a great surprise counter to Donphan since he can switch over to water. Uses attack Powerful Spark, does 40 damage plus 10 more damage for each energy attached to all your Pokemon. So you're at 70 base right away because you need 3 energy to use the attack. So that's already a one-hit KO on Donphan, plus, you know, whatever extra damage you do. On top of that, he can also take out Yanmega since he has the lightning type. So Lantern is a really great kind of surprise card. He doesn't see a whole lot of play, but that's not to say that he doesn't deserve it. He is a really good card and definitely worth using if you wanted to. He's from the Unleashed set. Next up, we have Magnezone, another one of the major primes. 140 HP is okay, but Magnetic Draw. Once during your turn, you may draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. This is stackable, so the more Magnezones you have, the more times per turn you can use this power, and basically you can use it to like draw through 3 hands in one turn to get all the cards you need. On top of that, he's got an amazing attack, Lost Burn, which lets you put as many energies as you want from any of your Pokemon, don't have to be from Magnezone, into the Lost Zone, and then the attack does 50 damage times the number of energies you did that with. So basically unlimited damage here. It's going to get expensive to hit for, 150 or more, but it's worth it if you're able to take that stuff out in one hit. So Magnezone factors into a couple of big decks, the main one being Yanmega Magnezone, since they have such amazing synergy. The only downsides here are the weakness. Fighting means Donphan, bait, and retreat cost means that once you use that Lost Burn, if you get rid of the energies on your active Magnezone, he's likely to get stuck out there. So if you're planning on playing Magnezone, make sure you're using some switches. But other than that, just an amazing card. And he's also from Triumphant, so another good reason to get those. Next up, we have Scizor Prime, 100 HP. Prevent all damage done to Scizor by Pokemon that have special energy attached to them. This is an interesting Pokebody, especially in the current metagame. Double colorless energy and rainbow are huge right now, so I could see Scissor making a decent tech card in some of your decks, as it's a way to kind of shut off your opponent. His attack, Metal Scissors, does 30 plus 20 more for each metal energy attached to Scissor, so it's going to do at least 50. Since one of them's in the price, you can also do some more if you attach extras. Only a 2 retreat cost, which isn't too bad for a steel type. The fire weakness is not great, since it means Reshurum's going to tear through him, but this is an interesting card that could work as a tech, but I wouldn't build an entire deck around it. It's just not reliable enough. And Scissors from the Undaunted set. Next up, we have Slowking, 100 hit points. Pokepower, opponent's choice. You get to draw 2 cards. Then your opponent gets to choose one, put it into your hand, and the other one goes to the bottom of your deck. I think this is a dumb power. Why would you give your opponent the ability to, screw you over by putting a card you could need on the bottom of your deck? Sure, you get a card, but they're going to guaranteed to make it the least useful one possible. So unless there's a way to shuffle your deck after you use this Pokepower, I can't see this doing a whole lot. On top of that, his attack is completely vanilla, 60 damage for 3 energy. Slowking's pretty awful. He's from Undaunted, so do with him what you will. Next up, we have Steelix Prime, 140 hit points. That is beefy for stage 1. On top of that, he's got an awesome Pokebody. Can't be affected by special conditions, so he stops Crobat cold in its tracks. Energy Stream is a nice attack. You don't need any particular type of energy. And it lets you search your discard pile for any energy card. It doesn't have to be basic, can be a special energy, and attach it to Steelix. And then Giga Crush does 100 damage, lets you get rid of a stadium. That's not going to factor in a whole lot, but 100 damage is solid. The only thing is it takes 5 energies, so they kind of want you to use Energy Stream to power that up. Steelix is a good card. He's not a great card, but he's a good card, and he can work in Reuniclus deck since he's got a bunch of hit points and he can't be poisoned like Donphan can. The main downside here is this ridiculous retreat cost of 4. Once he goes active, he is never coming back without a switch. And his weakness to fire, again, means Reshiram tears him apart. And last, but certainly not least, we have Tyranitar. 160 hit points. That is fantastic. It's going to take a lot to bring this guy down in one hit. Basically, Magnezone or a plus power from Emboar or Rayquaza Deoxys Legends are going to be the only things capable of taking this guy out in a single shot. On top of that, he's got 3 attacks. So the first one is cheap, which is always nice. Means you can get him evolved early and not have him sitting there unable to do anything. And for 1 Darkness Energy, this attack does 20 damage to every Pokemon in play that's not Dark type. This will hit your Pokemon, so be mindful of that. On the other hand, it hits everything your opponent has except Zoroark. So really great attack for just overloading damage, especially against Reuniclus decks, because you just hit everything. They can't shift that damage around fast enough after a couple of rounds. Second attack, Power Claw, pretty vanilla. 60 damage for 3 is pretty standard, but this does have the advantage that it's not affected by any effects on the other Pokemon. So, things like Donphan's Pokebody or any other type of special abilities are not affected. Don't affect the damage of this attack, so it's always going to hit for at least 60. And then we have Megaton Tail, 120. That's a very nice number. But you have to discard the top 3 cards of your deck. Kind of a small price to pay. And I think this is a good attack. It's only 4 energy for 120 without any discarding. Discarding energy is really nice. Tyranitar has whole decks built just around him. Like, if you're using him and you're using Darkness Howl, you kind of have to play a dark deck. Otherwise, you're going to end up knocking yourself out just as much as you knock out your opponent. But Tyranitar decks are really, really fun. I have a couple of videos with them, which I'm going to be posting soon. You'll get to see exactly how this guy works. And, I mean, it's Tyranitar. Tyranitar is awesome. So this is definitely a solid card and worth playing with. And he's from the Unleashed packs. So I've now rambled on for 45 minutes. If any of you stayed with me for this entire time, thank you for listening. I hope that some of what I said was helpful a little bit. Here, I'll show you guys my primes. These are the ones I have. Anyhow, as I said in my last video in the comments, but I didn't say it in actual audio, I'll say it now. What I'm giving you is just my opinion. Like, I've only been playing for a little while. I'm still learning the game, so there are definitely people that know more about the game than me. And if you're finding a deck that's working for you, even if it's not using quote-unquote good cards, go for it. Like, if you're having fun with your deck, that's really all that matters. So, you know, take my opinion as just that, my opinion. Try out the advice I'm giving, see if it works, see if it doesn't, and more than anything else, just have fun, enjoy playing, and I hope that these videos have at least inspired you guys to give this game a shot, because this is a really fun game, and I'm really glad that the Pokemon Company decided to make this. I've been wanting it for a long time. So anyhow, I'm done talking for real now, I promise. Stay tuned, guys. More coming your way shortly. Thanks.